Gettysburg, July 1863. What happened on the fourth day? On the morning of July 4th, 1863, the battlefield at Gettysburg lay quiet. Broken fields, shattered regiments, and exhausted men on both sides. Contrary to the simplified Northern narrative that Lee retreated at dawn, the record shows that General Robert E. Lee and the Army of Northern Virginia held their lines into that day, expecting that the Union Army might renew the fight. Only when that hope proved vain and logistical constraints grew dire did the Confederates withdraw in disciplined order late on the 4th. The Northern tale of the victor teaches something like this. Seminary Ridge was occupied by Confederate troops in July 1865 during the Battle of Gettysburg, which took place from July 1st to July 3rd, 1863. Seminary Ridge was a significant location where both Union and Confederate forces engaged in military actions. After the battle, it was occupied by Confederate troops until they were driven back by Union forces. That, dear reader, isn't exactly how it happened. Now, here's the truth. General Lee and the Army of Northern Virginia remained in battle formation on the west side of Gettysburg at Seminary Ridge well into the 4th of July, expecting that General Meade might counterattack. Only after that hope faded did Lee prepare and execute an organized withdrawal under cover of darkness. Meade, for his part, proved cautious and did not launch an immediate, crushing pursuit that some in Washington demanded. In other words, Lee did not flee. He waited, measured, and then extricated his army under favorable conditions. Key moments on July 4th, 1863. In the pre-dawn hours of July 4th, General Robert E. Lee directed preparations on Seminary Ridge. He ordered the repositioning and evacuation of the wounded, the organization of ambulances and wagon trains, and the securing of supply lines. These measures were not acts of panic but prudent steps toward readiness, either to hold ground or, if necessity demanded, to withdraw in good order. Throughout the day, the Confederate Army maintained a strong defensive posture along Seminary Ridge and its extensions. Lee expected that Major General George G. Meade might attempt an assault. However, torrential rain, exhausted men, broken terrain, and depleted artillery ammunition rendered further fighting perilous for both sides. Meade, after convening a council of war, concluded that attacking Lee's fortified position would bring intolerable losses. Although Washington politicians later charged that he missed an opportunity to destroy Lee's army, Meade chose caution over ruinous risk. The day passed in a somber calm. Both armies tended their wounded, buried their dead, and reconnoitered the opposing lines under heavy rain. As afternoon waned, Lee ordered the westward movement of his non-combat trains. After nightfall, his main forces began withdrawing south and west through the mountain passes, seeking to reach the Potomac and re-enter Virginia. Union cavalry struck Lee's wagon trains at Monterey Pass during the night of July 4th to 5th, but Meade's infantry, uncertain of Confederate intentions, delayed an organized pursuit. Flooded rivers and the destruction of Confederate pontoon bridges along the Potomac further complicated both retreat and pursuit, granting Lee crucial time to extricate his army. Why the difference in narratives? Well, what is often lost in popular accounts is that Lee's withdrawal was neither a rout nor a hasty escape. It was a calculated extraction. He honored the field as long as feasible, but he also recognized that the Confederate Army could not remain indefinitely in Pennsylvania. His leaving in relatively intact order is, from that perspective, a testament to his generalship and the discipline of his soldiers. In practice, the Confederates chose when to depart. The Union Army, having held the battlefield, claimed victory and later wrote the retreat narrative. Students in study must view not only who left first, but how the departure was carried out. Writer/historian Shelby Foote, in Stars in Their Courses, treats Gettysburg with a narrative sympathy that often underscores Southern suffering, the exhaustion of men, and the difficulty of prosecuting prolonged assaults in broken ground. Foote does not shy from the failures of the Confederate side, but he presents their decisions with the weight of their circumstances. John S. Tilley, in Facts the Historians Leave Out, would caution the reader to distrust the sanitized, dominant Northern accounts that omit the finer points of Confederate endurance and timing. His Southern literary tradition insists that such omissions are not mere accidents, but part of a broader erasure of Confederate dignity and tactical logic. Historian Thomas Pollard, in his memoirs and essays, stressed the dogged resolve of Confederate officers on that day, how many expected Meade's attack and were ready for it, even as supplies dwindled. While Pollard's writings are less widely known today, among Southern circles they serve as a counterbalance to mainstream histories. The simple phrase, "Lee retreated," is not wrong, but facts are left out, and the broader sense is taught alone. By 5 to 14 July, the Army of Northern Virginia had returned to Virginia, but it masks the operational reality at Gettysburg. Lee deliberately held a defensive posture on the 4th in the expectation that the Federals might renew the fight. In other words, the Confederates did not immediately flee. They coordinated an orderly withdrawal when it became clear the strategic situation, ammunition expended, wounded left behind, inability to maintain supply in Pennsylvania, made continuation impossible. Meade's caution, shaped by concerns about leaving an open route to Washington and by the condition of his own army, prevented an immediate blow that might have trapped Lee. Historians continue to debate whether Meade could or should have been more aggressive. Contemporaries in Washington, including their President Lincoln, were impatient for a decisive pursuit. The conventional, simplified narrative is the result of selective emphasis. The Confederates left Pennsylvania and the Union held the field, so the short story becomes Lee retreated, Meade won and pursued. Close study of the record shows that Lee waited for a possible fourth day of fighting, then conducted a controlled withdrawal when that chance vanished, and that Meade did not immediately convert his victory into an annihilating pursuit. That sequence explains why Lee marched back to Virginia intact and why Lincoln felt the opportunity had been lost. All being said, this narrative of quick retreat and the gallant Union Army in full chase is in fact nothing but another portion of the subtle lie taught and propagated by the victors. Study for yourselves. Seek the truth. Eugene Mathena. Suggested reading. Shelby Foote, Stars in Their Courses. The Gettysburg Campaign, June, July 1863, New York, Random House, 1994. John S. Tilley, Facts the Historians Leave Out, Montgomery, Alabama, Paragon Press, 1951. Edwin Coddington, The Gettysburg Campaign, A Study in Command, New York, Scribner, 1968. Retreat from Gettysburg. In the War of the Rebellion, Official Records of the Union and Confederate Armies, Series I, Volume 27, Part 1. John Pollard, Personal Recollections of the War Between the States, 1910.